You're more cultured than we are.
I doubt that.
Well, than me. Joe.
Thank you for the clarification.
Joe is cultured AF. So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Audio frequency?
Yeah.
AF?
Yeah, there you go. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Does it mean something else?
Yes, actually it does.
Oh.
There is a technical term as opposed to the colloquial AF.
Colloquial. Really?
Colloquial? Is that what it would be? Colloquial speech?
Can I spell that? I can't spell that.
You can't spell.
I can't spell. Okay. Cool.
I can spell it.
I would say let's jump on it, guys, because
jump on it. Jump on it. Extol. Jump on it. Jump on it. Jump on it.
I'm the guitars and the bass in
I'm
this.
done with those shenanigans.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
There are more shenanigans coming.
More shenanigans coming.
Always.
We're going to ask you guys how Not Beneath's coming along, and even if there's no news to report, just like make up something crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got big news coming up. Big news.
Well, to give you, I guess, the current state of it, it would be we put a band together and we've been practicing, but then one of the guys had his third child and stepped away for a good 6 months-ish. And now he's back in the band, and now we are practicing again as a 4-piece. So
beautiful.
We're Josh, I don't know, how far away do you think we are from being show ready? How many? Couple months? 3, 4 months?
It could be less depending on everybody's schedules.
Right.
But we are all fathers and people that have jobs, and it's just kind of like, this is what doing a band at 40 looks like, you know?
Nice.
This is what doing a podcast at 40 looks like.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. You've got a job. You do garage doors.
Yes, I do.
I used to do garage doors. Did garage doors for a decade.
Oh man, so you're better at it than I am.
I've seen brand new cars that they didn't measure the roof rack, and then they got it in somehow, and then pulled the entire door out on their brand new Explorer.
Yep.
Oh man.
I've had emergency service calls where the door is outside of the opening, hanging upside down by one cable.
And you're like, I don't want to stand underneath this. I can't reach the torsion bar. I can't do anything. Like,
Yeah.
You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 141, Extol, with Josh and Danny of Not Beneath.
Yay!
All the sugar dozen is 15.
Hosted by Dan Terry.
that's me. All right, bitch. I'm pulling goddamn rank. We're not doing it.
And Joseph Wren. This is everything you like, all at once. Presented by discussmetal.com. And if you think this is the first time, Circle Back Terminus will be the album of the week for everyone on the podcast, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe. That is Dan. Josh and Danny are here again.
Yo.
The Meshuggah lineup returns.
Yay.
Tonight on the return of Four Tired Guys.
Yeah.
We had a whole weekend. I mean, I was driving down here almost falling asleep. I was like, this is not a good decision. Okay, I'll just keep driving.
Falling asleep in the late afternoon is scary.
It's a little terrifying, but you don't understand, man. My wife woke me up at 6:05 this morning, and we went on a death march, which lasted for a really long time. And then after that, we went to a family get-together in a park outside, and the children went off like rubber bands in 150 different directions, and I had to keep track of them the entire time. And that pretty much soaked up most of my mental, physical, and spiritual everything. You're dealing with a husk of a man tonight. And I went to a Norwegian concert last night, so I can't hear anything either. So there's that.
You didn't hear Memphis Shall Be Laid to Waste at all.
They didn't play it.
I scream foul.
Well, you know, they played mostly new stuff, which I mean, I don't like hate their new stuff, but you know, whenever you go to see Norwegian, there's a certain like 14-year-old version of myself that's like, this used to be the greatest band ever, you know. So there was that.
I saw The Cure about, I don't know, 14 years ago, something like that, and they did something similar where they only played new stuff. Well, not only, but they mostly played new stuff. And they played, I think, one or two songs off of Disintegration, and wasn't happy about that, gotta say. Oh well.
It's so frustrating. It's like, just make the decisions that I want you to make.
You came to my city. I want you to play the songs I like.
Why didn't you contact me to set up your set list?
Come on, Corey Brandon.
Yeah, right.
Could have been like,
well,
nothing new, everything off of Disintegration, and then that's it.
Were you not listening when I said 66475?
Right. So
Come on.
Well, guys, tonight we're doing it. You guys called dibs on the Extol episode, and
we sure did.
we actually got
Extol.
We actually got an angry, not angry, but we got an email.
It's angry.
From a guy that was all like, "You guys need to stop beating around the bush and do an Extol episode."
What was the
And I'm like,
email
dude,
address on that, dude?
I don't remember. It was something
You've
awesome.
got hate mail about Extol, about just do.
Like,
an
you guys
Extol
need to do
episode.
it. Yeah.
Not beneath band at yahoo.com.
No, that wasn't them. No, actually, I do remember the dude's email address. It was
Oh.
so that guy wants his Christian metal discussed, you know, in a timely manner. Like, you know, he was like, "This is not cool," and I'm like, you know, Tourniquet. I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but I almost sent a message back being like, "We don't negotiate with Mortification fans." But I thought that might be.
We let him host the podcast every week.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have like a Scrolls of Megaloth tattoo, that's okay.
You
Right.
should see his ass.
Oh no!
Oh my God.
Danny
Okay.
like.
I can't leave that in the show, can I?
I mean, you can do whatever you want, man. You're the editor. But yeah, like first two albums, fine, you know. But
Yeah.
like everything else, yeesh.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot like being a fan of a lot of bands. Like, if you're a fan of anything that Metallica did after And Justice, you know, that's fair. That's fair. But we've got a lot to disagree about.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you right now.
Well, the good news is on Extol, I don't know if we do. There's a couple of places.
There's some things I already know that Danny and I disagree about. So let's get going.
Let's get into it.
1998. Burial.
Burial.
So, I went to Cornerstone 1998, and all of a sudden I hear this noise coming from one of the tents. I think that Embodiment had just played. I think Embodiment was putting out Embrace the Eternal.
Hell yes.
And I heard from another tent, I heard some band playing, and I'm like, oh my word, what is this? Walked over, it's Extol. It's their first show, I believe, in America. Maybe they played that Texas date earlier than Cornerstone. I'm not sure. But their first trip to America, I was lucky enough to see them, and it was incredible.
Yeah. I don't even know what else to say to that because they are, and I didn't get to see them whenever they first debuted. I've actually never seen them live because they can't ever get over here enough, which I understand because, like, you know, for the same reasons most bands have trouble like moving forward. Sometimes it's hard, no matter how good your music is, to be everywhere at once. And I first heard the song Burial. I mean, it just blew my mind because I didn't really listen to death metal at that time. Like I had 0 point of reference for what I was hearing, but it was so undeniably awesome that I was like, oh my God, like these guys can play on a level that like nobody that I've ever met can play. Like this is not like the hardcore bands I was listening to. This was like super intentional, super technical, heavy with like vocals that were like just terrifying.
Yeah. I think to make a point, I think that there is almost 0 frame of reference for Extol, period. No matter if you've been into death metal or into progressive metal or black metal, that first record, Burial, was like, I have never heard anything like this. There is nothing that I can really realistically compare it to. And so that's what grabbed me.
Yeah. The first time I heard Burial was well later. I heard it in 99 because the band I was in at the time, Outcry, was going to play Cornerstone 99. And on the way there was, or actually no, on the way there wasn't the first time I heard them, but they were playing that year as well. But in 99 was the first time I heard them. And getting to see them at Cornerstone 99, it was the only time I got to see Extol. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, Burial was still out at the time. And let me see. My favorite track, I think my favorite track was Burial. It was either that or Celestial Completion. Both of those were my favorite tracks on Burial.
Yeah, Burial's got this intro to it. Like it takes a little while to get going, and they're like it just like it starts off like on full blast, and then it just goes into this like really weird that like like and like I don't know, like that's the technical term for it, by the way, in case you guys didn't know. But like I couldn't get past how cool that sounded because it's just the guitar. It's just the guitar, drums, and bass, and as basic as that sounds, the kind of sounds that they created. Like they're definitely using their own weird tuning. You know, they've got a guitar tone that doesn't sound like anything I've really ever heard before, and they're playing at such a technical level that like I can't keep up with it. Even now, whenever I listen to it, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like I have no idea. And like with the vocals, what I like about the vocals on this record, and we'll talk about it on the next one too, is that these vocals were a little bit more like straight ahead. Like they were just the vocals. Yes. There wasn't a whole bunch of like processing and post effects and stuff thrown onto them. And in a way, that's what I think makes this record sound like a little black metal versus the later stuff, which was more death metal focused.
Yeah, I thought that this kind of was almost like a progressive black metal album. At least the first time I heard it, that's the closest box that I could fit it in. Like, wow, this is really progressive, but it does have the elements of black metal in it, and it was so unique that it was one of those bands I was hoping wasn't going to be a one and done. Thankfully, they weren't. But I have to throw John from Circle back into this because I remember when we listened to Burial and first track Into Another Dimension, and the breakdown would happen with the I don't know, whatever that instrument is, like an ocarina.
Yeah.
The pan flute.
You know, from Zelda.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
John just like losing it over that part, thinking it was so incredible. And it was so unique for the time, but it put you into kind of that, that black metal forest with mist and horses. And
I'm gonna tell you a gothic story about a castle and a man who hides in the trees at night and sings songs at the passersby.
Well, no, you're right. Like
a stone church.
It makes you want to put on corpse paint and like grab a sword and get lost in the woods. Like it's awesome in that regard. And I think it's really cool. Talking about the uniqueness of the band, that the first thing that you hear when you pop that record is Into Another Dimension, and it's like so accurately titled because you are in a different dimension when you're listening to this record. Right. Like it is not your conventional death metal. It's not your conventional anything at all. Like
yeah.
And like, how did you guys feel whenever the clean vocals came in?
I loved them.
At the time, I wasn't that sure about it because it was like that was a time in my life where it was like no clean singing, not acceptable to sing cleanly in whatever I'm listening to. But I made an exception because it was like, I don't know, there was just something different about it, and it hit all the right, things for me. It checked a lot of boxes and made me feel nice. Yeah. And so, it kind of harkened back to like Striper, which I think is probably one of an influence at least, but I don't know. I used to really like Striper. I still do like Striper.
Well, one of my biggest... go ahead.
I was going to say, I was into a lot of European metal in the 90s, and I always viewed the American side of metal and hardcore as being the heavier, more aggressive type of music, whereas the European side tended to be more melodic. So I was already used to the European format, but Extol pushed those boundaries too, in that the types of melodies they were doing were so different that really anything that kind of came along with it, even the singing, I thought was very well done. But so I was kind of already used to that type of that genre of metal. Yeah.
I wasn't listening to Extol in the late 90s. I started playing guitar right around 15, 16, and lifelong Metallica fan, Megadeth fan, Slayer. So when I got to the point where I had played all the songs that I liked, I started looking for more bands that played that style of music, thrash. But the 80s style of guitar playing, what was basically hard rock, but everybody called it hair metal or heavy metal, I was looking for that, and I found Extol by accident. I was not into the vocals, even though Dan forced me to change my mind.
Well, you were just wrong. I mean,
Right.
that's just something
obviously.
simple like that. Yeah.
But the way they play at the time reminded me of Slayer. The way that it's just a straight ahead, here's the beat, it's constant, the guitars are straight thrash. Oh, and we're going to do some little time changes and things just to scare everyone. It was interesting, and I still enjoy it. Just not for the same reasons that Dan Terry was looking for.
Well, what I hear a little bit on this record, the only comparison that I can really throw it on there is death. I hear a little bit of death.
You don't hear that
That's
Opeth
all
reference
fair.
again?
Yeah, I mean, because there are songs, I think, and I could be wrong about the track title, but there's a song on there called, I think, Superior, which has a lot of, like a little bit of a death sound of perseverance vibe to it. And, I mean, obviously he didn't have, like, Chuck's, like, shrill, vocal delivery,
Right.
but it would have fit there for sure. And I really loved being able to hear everything on this record, because there's a lot of people that actually don't like Burial, believe it or not. It is not like a favorite amongst some Extol fans because they say, well, it just sounds flat.
It sounds like a death metal album.
Like production wise, it sounds flat. Yes, but like if you compare it to something like Undeceived, which we'll get to in a minute, that record is very like bottom end heavy, whereas Extol is somewhat more of just a flat like center
That's
recording.
interesting to hear.
Yeah. And it's but like I don't mind it because I can hear everything clearly. Like there's a separation of instruments there where, yes, they are absolutely heavy, but they're not resorting to a lot of tricks that a lot of the heavy bands use to make their record sound heavier maybe than the band really is.
It's like classic thrash. It's mixed in the middle because eventually it's going to be on a cassette tape in somebody's car.
Well, even for the time, that wasn't really... the recording quality wasn't really outside of the norm. There was in the 90s, there were so many albums that just sounded different. And to me, that was normal. Whereas a lot of albums today kind of sound, at least sonically, very, very similar. Not a good or bad thing, but for the time when Burial came out, it was very in line with the rest of the original recordings that were out in the 90s.
Yeah, and especially with like solid state stuff, at the time it was very on par. Although I actually do think stuff like Blood and Fire and maybe even Living Sacrifices Reborn sounded a little bit more beefy, but beef wasn't what Extol was about. They could be as extreme as you want. I just want to throw out there that like this is my favorite Extol record, and I don't know if it's just because it's the first one I heard. A lot of the time that can be, the deciding factor for a lot of people. I definitely think that they got better than this, but as far as like actual like preference, like which one I'm going to throw on first whenever I think of the band, it's pretty much always this one, and it's because there's so much stuff that like you can listen to this record 20 years later or literally 20 years later and hear things that you didn't hear before. Like there's so much intricacy within the song that you're gonna miss the first like 100 times you listen to it. Either that or I just suck at hearing things.
You did say you were deaf after the Norma Jean show.
Well, that's true. I am. And I like bands like Norma Jean, so where's my opinion really matter?
Hey, Norma Jean's great.
I agree.
So how was the Norma Jean show, Dan?
Well, it was loud. That's about all I remember of it.
Huh?
It was really loud.
What?
It was super loud. So loud. Lots of screaming. The vocalist seemed very angry.
Was it packed?
It was pretty packed, yeah. Yeah, there was a band that opened up called
Nice.
Gideon, who
Yes.
they recently stopped the whole like being a Christian band thing, and they went like they did like an about
that's what I heard.
phase. Yeah, so dude's like literally like, let's open up this fucking pit, man. Like it was so like I've seen Gideon so many times before this, and like to see them like throw down like a profanity laden performance was very, very odd, you know. But they rocked it. I mean, they still did the thing that they came to do, you know. So it worked out. But yeah, I actually did not stick around for the Devil Wears Prada at the end, but because I'm old and I just didn't. I don't know. I haven't listened to that. It's nothing against them. I haven't listened to that band since I was like a teen, and I just don't care. Like I didn't want to sit through a whole set list of songs I didn't know. But anyway,
For sure.
back to Extol.
Yeah,
Are we going to be covering the EPs from Extol as well?
We can briefly cover them if we have time.
Okay, because the next one that came up was in 1999, and that's the one that Josh and I. Yeah, that's. I really like it, and Josh is not so much a fan.
I don't know how you could
it's
not
my
like
least
it.
favorite release.
Really? I don't know how you could not like it.
I'll tell you how. Industrial.
The industrial half of the EP.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that, but
it's unlistenable to me. Yeah, the other songs, the few tracks that are like there that aren't industrialized, yeah, they're great. But as soon as those industrial tracks hit, I'm like, I have been over industrial music for a good long while already. I think that came out in like '99. You know, I think I was done with industrial after. I think the last thing I liked when maybe Clank, that Clank record, first Clank record.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Clank. We love Clank.
Last time I remember actually liking an industrial record was that Clank record. You know, so I don't know.
Well,
I didn't mind the industrial part of it. The thing for me was that it kind of sounded like if Mortiz did something good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Mortiz. I mean, you know, God love you if you are, but I am not.
Well, I don't really pay attention to the industrial songs on that. Like to me, that was just fluff.
Okay.
So like whenever I ripped the CD to my first MP3 player, you know, I didn't include those songs. So when I think
That's fair.
when I think of Mesmerized, I think of just like those 3 tracks that were at the beginning. And I mean those original songs were some killer stuff. Like to me, those songs were the perfect bridge between the Burial sound and the Undeceived sound. Like you could see them kind of going. Because there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, you know, Extol used to be great, old Extol, and I'm like, yeah, but like there's a very distinct difference in sound between Burial and Undeceived, and this album is kind of like, or EP is kind of like just a perfect bridge, which is what I think EP should be.
It's not your fault. We don't usually talk about EPs.
Yeah, the song. The song that stands out to me the most on Mesmerized is The Prodigal Son. How it just starts off with that like dank, like dun, 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 like it's like the dirt, and he just comes in like so proud. Why did I leave? And then you like, there's like effects on his voice though. Like it's one of the first times you're just like, oh okay, he's gonna do like the voice effect thing now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Extol had like their very first demo, I think, had Prodigal Son on it, and it sounds really different. But yeah, those 3 songs on Mesmerized, at least you know the metal ones, I really, really, really dig. Oh, yeah. I mean, it opens up with it. I'm like, oh, that's so good. And yeah, at least covering those 3 songs, they're quite good.
Yeah,
But,
they're really good. Storm of Disillusion is like, it starts off with like the cleans, like they brought those back, and they sound even better. They sound even better than they did before. Like it's just such an epic intro to that song that you're like totally with it throughout. And then if you're listening to the CD version and not my specially made version, then you're gonna hear those industrial tracks afterwards, which definitely take me out of it quite a bit. But you know,
to sum up. If it was just a 3-song EP, it's great.
Solid
But
gold. Yeah.
You made me mad by giving me fluff. And
By giving
also,
you remixes, industrial remixes.
Also, I don't feel like they did that at any other time throughout the rest of their career.
They did.
Where they gave me stuff that I'm like, I don't like this. I'm literally ready to throw half this record away.
Right.
You know? So maybe they were just into it and thought, hey, this is a good idea, and they needed a certain track count for the record label to be happy with them or whatever as far as the release goes. But, you know, it just makes me really wonder what was going through there. Maybe they really were into it.
I don't know.
They might have had that one guy in the band that was way into industrial and decided to sit down with his keyboard and say, hey guys, I've got the closing of the record, The Ballad of Buddy Bixby.
Well, to throw this in there, so the lineup for Burial had Peter Espivol, Christer Espivol, the guitar player, right? Ule Barud. And so and those two together to me made Extol. But then like they had a bass player on Burial, but he quit. And then for Mesmerize, they got that Tor Glidier.
Yeah,
can't pronounce that guy's name.
He was in that other band, Langsell.
Yeah, Langsell.
Yeah,
and he was in Mantric, and he played bass on Mesmerized. So there's kind of the link into a couple albums into their future, so to speak. But yeah, maybe we should hit on maybe move to Undeceived now.
Let's jump on Undeceived.
Well, before we move on to Undeceived, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher. So if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
Hey, well, thanks so much, Joe, for that wonderful introduction. I will tell you about 5-star reviews. I have one for you guys to read as soon as I pull up in my email. Loading.
We do this every week, and he still has to pull it up on his email.
Well, you know. So Josiah Russell from Australia says, solid podcast, guys. I really enjoyed the concept of looking at the entire discographies rather than standalone albums by artists. It definitely gives the ability to look at progression, regression, change of mind and heart, and get a holistic view of who they are. One gripe I have, when you guys start talking about specific parts of songs you like and dislike, it'd be awesome to hear what you're talking about. I know it's on in the background, but I would love to hear specific examples of parts of tracks that you were talking about. Another comment is thank you for making a positive Dead Z episode. The Roach Coach hates Dead Z, and I'm glad you guys love them. Keep it up, guys. Keep looking forward to future episodes. So first of all, thank you for leaving a 5-star review. But secondly, the thing about using specific parts of songs is that like there are like actual killer robots on the internet that will go and look for us playing specific examples of uninterrupted audio, and they will shut us down if we use them. So we can't. We want to, but we can't. I'm sorry.
Look for the playlist in the show notes every week.
Yeah, we usually will do a playlist of songs that we talked about on the episode, so that's one place that you can look at to find the specific songs we're talking about. And like I said, that's just a technical limitation, man. We would totally be doing it already if we felt like we could. But thank you so much for the 5-star review. And the other thing I want to say beyond reviews is reviews are great. We love reviews. They make me feel better as a person. I sleep better at night, all that good stuff. But the biggest thing that you can do to help our podcast out is to share the episodes. When you hear an episode and you like it, you probably have like 5 or 6 friends in your social media that like it too. So if you share the episode with them, then they get to hear what we've got going on the podcast, and so on and so forth.
So you know what I was thinking? Here's what I was thinking. As you're doing the 5-star reviews and the guy was saying, why can't you do specific parts? You should make the people doing the discussion like hum or imitate the parts that they're talking about.
That's the thing, though. He does that. He starts talking about the thing that he likes, and out of nowhere, just dun 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 dun.
But making your guests do it would be pretty funny.
We'll get you guys to do the newest song, you know, whatever your latest single is before the show's over. Straight acoustic, Skype delay and all. Good luck.
That part of the soul that goes.
2000 or 2002, Undeceived.
Oh man, guys. I need to get something off my chest right now. Which CD versions do you guys have? Do you have the solid state version, or do you have the Century Media version?
I have the solid state version.
Me too.
Me as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all talking about the same record here. Okay.
Right.
I'm only saying that because I was taking my kids to like a family day, and my favorite way to start off a family day is to pop on Undeceived before we start a 40-minute drive. Wife loves it. Kids love it. Everyone loves it. That's what I tell myself. And I'm listening to it in the Century Media version, which I think is what's on the stream. It starts with the song Undeceived.
Right.
And I'm like, you can't start this record off with Undeceived. You've got to build up to that. You know, like you got to start with Inferno. Like that song is like a perfect opening track. Like I don't understand how they could start it with Undeceived. But that aside, we're all talking about the same record, so we don't have to worry about it.
Great. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever heard the Century Media version. I had no idea there was a version out there with Undeceived as the first track.
Yeah. Somebody thought this is a good idea. Let's go with it. It's not like Undeceived is a terrible song, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Like this, the way Inferno starts off the record, it was meant to be, and like, oh my gosh. What were your guys' first impressions of Undeceived?
So the album that I got, this is gonna sound like it's a pretty big dig on the band, but it's not.
Oh no.
The mastering seemed to have no low end. Seemed to be all top heavy.
Really?
Yeah. At least the CD that I got, it was all top heavy. There was almost no low end. So I kind of felt like it wasn't mastered well. I liked the solid state version that has Undeceived second, I agree with that. That, you know, opening up with Inferno and then Undeceived second was a way, that's the way I listened to the album. And when when Undeceived hit with the quartet, it sounded so amazing. And again, Extol pushing the envelope of metal to do something like that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think I actually took issue with this record. It took me a while to actually appreciate it when it came out because the vocals were so different from Burial. Because I think he did two vocal tracks and brought it way down.
Oh yeah,
and it took me a good long while before I was like, I like this album. But I think that the songwriting is really what brought me through that whole thing. These songs are just on another level.
They are, and they're on another level in a weird way. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just I have sung the praises of Ola Barud for so long. He's this sounds crazy, but he's easily one of my top 5 favorite metal guitar players ever. He's just good.
No doubt. But and him with the combination
the level
of
creativity. I agree that Extol at that point was, very much Ola and Krister as guitar players. But, you look down the line and you see, like, I know I'm jumping ahead, but you look at the structure of the songs on the self-titled record and the things that I can identify that I appreciate about the songwriting it was made apparent to me that it was always the things that Ola brought to the table. So that's all I'm saying is I love his guitar playing. I love his phrasing. And it's always just keeps you on your toes. And those are the things that make you come back. Just like Death always kept me coming back, the guitar riffs, man. It's all about the riffs. I don't know.
I would say with both Burial and with Undeceived that the lines were fairly blurred between Krister and Ule. Did we just lose Josh?
I'm bringing him back in.
Okay. I can kind of hear both of them. I think where it becomes more apparent in who's who is in their next album, Synergy. But I don't know if you want to go there yet. Do you want to go there?
There's a couple of things I wanted to say about Undeceived. And the first thing was... What's up, Joe? Oh, okay. How's that?
That's better.
Smooth. There was a couple things I wanted to say about Undeceived. Number one, the songs are at another level, but it's done in a unique way in that I think these songs are more straight ahead in the sense that they're not simplistic. I would never call this band simplistic, you know. It's just that they went for song structures that were a little bit easier to digest than maybe on Burial, where I said, you know, you can listen to Burial 100 times.
I see that.
And not hear everything.
Yeah, I see that. I see what you're saying with that.
And so they definitely beefed it up in the heaviness department, you know, like, because the version I think sounds very bottom end heavy. And I don't know, again, if like there was like a remaster done or somebody went in and fixed it or something from the original run, because stuff like that does happen, you know, like they may not advertise it, or maybe they sent out an unmixed version in the first, you know, or something dumb like that, or an unmastered version. But I thought this was really, really bottom end heavy. I think that the vocal assault is so much more pronounced on this record, but there's good things and bad things about it. Like, as a listener, I love it. I love like how like Undeceived goes, "Shake our back." Like, I mean, it's so brutal and like in your face. But it, like, once you've been doing a podcast for 3 years and you've listened to tons and tons and tons of records, you're like, okay, he's got two vocal tracks going on at the same time, one high, one low, and maybe even doing the Zayo thing in places where there's like a whisper track in there as well. And it's just turned way up, like it's like clipping. It's so loud.
Solid State Records in 2000.
Yeah,
Come
dude.
on.
Like this was, this was absolutely like, you can tell it's faked, you know, to a certain degree, because when you see the songs live, it sounds like Burial again, you know, like you know,
exactly.
so it was definitely like a studio trick to get the vocals to be where they were at the level that they were. And I remember just being like, this is really, really, really cool. This is so awesome. I love every song on the record. Like Burial, some of the songs had to kind of grow on me over time. Undeceived, it was like first listen, you finish it, you're like, oh my God, that's the best record I've ever heard in my life, you know? And, you know, and especially when you're like 18, you know, you're just like, everything everybody else listens to sucks. You know, get away from me with that Between the Buried or whatever with me. Like, this is so much better, and it's not really, but it's like one of those, like, you know, you want to, because, you know, as a young as a young zealous Christian man, I always wanted to be like, my Christian metal bands are so much better than all these other ones that are out there. And I'm still like that to a certain degree, but like it's
2003 Dan called, he said listen to Zayo.
Right. So it was definitely like an experience for me, and one of the greatest records I think for that scene, like the Christian death metal scene or whatever. And this one definitely leaned a lot heavier towards death metal, and there wasn't as much black metal blasting and stuff, which I kind of miss. Like, in retrospect, it's like I kind of miss that about Burial versus Undeceived, where it's like I liked kind of never really knowing what they were going to do next with Burial, whereas on Undeceived, they weren't predictable songs, but they were more straight ahead. They were more straightforward. And that's all I got. I just, that record meant a lot to me for such a long time that, like, it's undeniably one of the greatest records ever, and it's a close second as far as my favorites go.
I love Undeceived. I think it stands the test of time. My only gripes about it is vocally. I think that the dual vocals, they definitely had a place in a very small window of time in the early 2000s. I think that we have gotten further away from that as we've, you know, grown as humanity and realized that we don't want the doubled vocals that sound unrealistic. Like, if you can't do it live, don't put it on a record. I think that album is so raw, though. And I think that a lot of that has to do with how they mix the bass. So I think that the bass mix made that record sound the way that it does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I still liked Burial better, but it's not to say that I didn't like Undeceived. I definitely liked Undeceived, but Burial for me edged out just a little bit. And it wasn't just oh, well, that's the first album of a band, because, you know, as we get later into the discography, Burial's not my favorite, but it's up there. But yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Don't Do It Live if you can't do it live.
Right.
I want every modern metal band to listen to what Josh from Not Beneath just said. Knock it off with the backtrack and the auto-tune. There's one guy up front doing all the work, and I hear 5 people. Let this be a lesson.
But vocoders are okay.
Well, vocoders
Yes.
are the exception.
Vocoders are awesome.
Vocoders are always welcome.
Say, I will allow tracks if they are just harmonies, but you don't get extra guitar tracks.
No.
I might allow synth tracks, because who wants to bring along an extra guy in the van just to like hold one key down?
Hey, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it with the guy we had on last week.
Money.
Why would I split it 5 ways when I can only split it 4? Why would I do that to me? Ladies and gentlemen, Dan, the ultimate capitalist.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I definitely agree on the vocals thing, because like to my 2019 ears, I'm like, this sounds fake.
You've always had doubled vocals in music. You still do. But at some point, somebody figured out that if you set them at the same level, they don't sound as good as you think they do. Now you need to take the best one. That needs to be up here, and then you can back it up with something if you want to thicken it up just a little bit. But setting them at the same level, right in the center of the mix, it sounds unrealistic. It sounds mechanical, because it has to be.
Unless you're Snapcase.
Right, then it's fine.
Then it's fine.
Well, I think Ian Malcolm summed it up
Always
really
one
well.
exception.
Yeah. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park summed it up really well. You guys spent so much time trying to figure out whether or not you could. You never stopped to think of whether or not you should.
Dude, you've been on a Jurassic Park kick lately. What's going on with you?
Clever girl. I don't know. But it's, yeah, like this record definitely, like, it definitely accomplished what it set out to accomplish. I think Synergy was, for a lot of people, a little bit of a divider.
Yeah, I think at least for me, partly with that is because Peter changed his vocal style so much.
Did he change it, or did he just start being more honest about what his vocals sounded like?
So the thing about Synergy that seems to be the divider, at least in my opinion, is that Peter changed his vocal style, and I think he might have just been getting more comfortable, or maybe he felt like he needed to change it up to, sometimes vocalists, like their vocals, might feel like they're getting shredded, so they change it up to preserve themselves. But I think that took a lot for me to get used to. But I loved the songwriting, and later on, maybe a few years after the record was released, I really liked it. I think it's probably my favorite release from them now, based on that. It was a tough pill. Like, I really liked his vocals so much, but when he changed it up, it was like, oh, that's really, really different.
Totally.
Yeah, I totally agree. Synergy is easily my favorite record, but again, the vocal change was something that had to be kind of like taken in small doses until I really liked it. I don't know. It was so. Every album has essentially been a drastic change vocally from the very beginning, and it's like you have to be like, okay, so I was really into it last album. After a while, okay, now I have to realign my tastes just so I can love this album, because I need to, because musically it's just so superior to other things that everybody's doing. And it was so thrashy, like it got so far away from where we had started with Burial, and it had gone so far into that thrash subgenre. It was so good. I love all those old thrash records, and like for the longest time, like Crucified and Believer. Believer was a huge band for me, and I think that there's a lot of like that Believer influence that shows up in a couple of their records, but mainly Synergy. I think that's a pretty easy call. Believer, Death.
Well, I think the second record came out on Solid State Records in 2000. Nobody in the band made the decision to double the vocals and make them sound that way. That was somebody who was in charge of the studio, who was probably assigned by the record label to make it sound the way they wanted it to. We talked about Truthless Heroes, Project 86, came out on Tooth and Nail at a time when every record that came out on Tooth and Nail sounded like that. Another example is Zayo, Splinter Shards. It came out at a time where somebody decided every record that comes out this year sounds this way. So the lead singer now has had 5 years on record of finding his voice. He's played countless shows, and now he knows what he sounds like, and he knows how to control his voice in the studio. So he's probably just recording a better product, and it's not being manipulated as much.
Yeah, but it's hard for like a meathead like me to go from, you know, like that's what you're expecting from, you know, from a band like this. Like that is because that's what you've gotten up to this point. So I'm not gonna lie, like the first time I heard Synergy, I was all like, what the hell happened to this band? You know, like, and but, you know, like you guys, I mean, we all rocked a lot of Believer records back in the day. And, you know, it's funny you say there's a small, or there's a Believer influence. This sounds like a Believer tribute record. Like, I mean, it really does. I mean, yeah, it's all original material. But, like, oh my God, were they listening to some Believer, like, Extraction from Mortality, like, you know, type stuff. And so in that respect, like, just because I'm a meathead doesn't mean I can't appreciate, like, really above average songwriting. Like, this was incredible musically. Like, I mean, just on a whole different plane of existence. It's into another dimension, you know, like it's a whole different thing. And, you know, his vocals are, I think the change in vocals was more just like, well, musically, we're not playing death metal here. We're not playing black metal. You know, we are playing thrash in the style of Believer.
That old way showed up on a couple songs. Oh, no, it was one song in particular. It was
Psychopath?
No, it was, Psychopath, but it was also on Scrape the Surface.
Yeah.
The Surface.
Blood Red Cover. He does a little bit of that vocal.
Of that there too.
Yeah, and so it's there. Like, there's still Extol. Like, there can't be anybody else, right? And you know, I think, but I think the change in vocal style had more to do with, like, well, it's a thrash record, so it needs to be a thrash vocal. You know?
Yeah, I buy that. Because on their demo, their very first demo, he sounded like he did on the first couple records, their Embraced demo. But yeah, this one, that was the toughest pill, I think, of it to swallow. But even kind of relating it back to Krister and Ule, to me, this was the album where I can more distinctly hear who wrote which part.
Totally.
But I view this one as, I don't know, this is the fan in me saying that all of their stuff is really a masterpiece, but to me, Synergy was their masterpiece. It was so good. But yeah, I mean, really, as soon as I got used to the vocal and really understood what they were trying to do, it to me, it's one of the very rare front to back albums that I can listen to all the way through and not have to skip anything. It's so good.
Yes, absolutely, from start to finish.
Yep.
It's just fantastic.
It's fine. My kid just came in and was all like, the movie just stopped on its own.
These are the reasons why I wish we were streaming live.
She's like,
on
what are you?
YouTube.
She's like, what are you prepared to do to fix this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Hey, well, is my image frozen at all?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Your background
All right,
is blurred.
Yeah, you know what? I just saw that it is.
That's fine.
I only see Joe. I only see Joe's screen on my computer. It's all right. I like Joe. He's handsome.
You can see the back of my neck sometimes. Like,
yeah.
And you're like, oh my God,
when
Dan.
Joe moves his head.
You're like, oh my God, Dan is so much fatter in real life than he looks like on Facebook. Because like I catfish people, you know.
Rubbernecking.
I don't remember who it was. I think it was Russ from Zayo said like, oh wow, you're like a lot bigger in real life than I thought you'd be.
Russ.
Russ.
Pretty sure the only thing Russ said on stage was,
Well, yeah, on stage. So this is a dumb side tangent, but like I bought like Zayo like worth of beer before they came to town. Dude, it's so funny because like so I text Scott and I'm like, hey, we're outside with beer, like, and I've never seen Dan from Zayo just materialize out of nowhere so fast, like in my life. Like literally, I got done sending the text and I looked to my right and Dan's just standing there like with his hand out, like shaking. You know, it was either shake hands or give me a beer, like one of the two. Like it was hilarious. One of our more proud moments. Anyway, so with Synergy. What do you guys think that like solid state kids thought of Synergy? Like if we could take ourselves out of it for a second, like what that solid state scene as a whole in 2002, like how they would have felt about something like Synergy, because like those kids didn't grow up on thrash, they grew up on like, you know, Living Sacrifice, like Reborn era, you know, like.
well, I did grow up on thrash, and you were the biggest solid state kid that I know.
Well, yeah, you did. But
So this was one of those, hey, dude, let's meet in the middle on this one.
I don't know. I mean, I can only say it from the opposite perspective, meaning that I knew a bunch of non-solid state kids, and this was the album that got them into Extol. Even though, you know, again, the other albums kind of set it all up as to what they were going to sound like, so to speak. But yeah, this was the one I remember where other metal kids were coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, have you heard of this band Extol?" But yeah. You're way late.
And I think that while Undeceived was like an album that gave them some notoriety and definitely gave some credence to the fact that they were a great band, even outside of the Christian metal scene, I think that by signing with Century Media, they gave themselves a little bit more credibility and opened themselves up to a much wider audience than they would have been in front of if they had just stuck to Solid State. And so it was at the same time that that my old band Narcissus had signed to Abacus Recordings, which was an imprint of Century Media. And so essentially, you know, we ran into Extol at Cornerstone that year, and
nice.
You know, I was bragging that we were label mates, and yeah, it was fun.
We're basically best friends now.
He made the shirt that said, "I'm on a record label with Extol,"
except not at all.
You were on a subsidiary, bro.
Still counts.
Yes. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Totally. In my book, it counts. That's association.
Yes.
You basically are only linked to the band. Yeah.
It's not about what the name on the check is. It's about who signs the check.
Wait a minute. You guys are getting paid?
Somebody did at some point. I'm not sure. But I remember seeing that show that year after Synergy had come out, and it was wild. I mean, they were just I think that might have been, other than that first time of seeing them not knowing who they were, it was my favorite time ever seeing them. They were just so good, you know? And I've seen them, I think I saw them 4 times. So I consider myself very lucky. But it seemed like the only thing that brought them to the States was like Cornerstone and then these little weird tours that they'd get on. I know that they toured a ton in Europe with like Opeth and some other bands, but I just never even heard about tours coming anywhere close in the States.
Not to that same level of notoriety like it was in Europe.
No.
Yeah, right. Well, so I guess this is a weird dividing point with the band, because pretty much after this record, everybody split except Peter, right?
Peter and David.
And
David still was still in the band.
That's where the guys from Mantric and Langcell came into the band.
Yes. It was like, well, crap, everybody quit. Who do we know that can, that can come in? Like, well, the situation we've all been in as guys in bands before, where we're like, well, crap, who do I know that would do it? Or like, who can I stand to be on a bus with for, however long?
Dude, that wasn't your thought process. It was who's going to do it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, because Tor was played bass on Mesmerized, and I don't remember if he played bass on Undeceived, but that was kind of their familiarity. Where, he played bass for us. Let's get him into the band, and then he switched over from bass, if you will, to guitar. So Blueprint Dives is definitely, they set this thing up. The closest thing I can think of relating this to would be like when Cave-In did Until Your Heart Stops, and then they did Jupiter, and you were like, for me, I was like, what is this? Now, I like Jupiter a lot now, but they set this thing up. They had their masterpiece, and then Blueprint came out, and I remember putting it in and saying, like, how come this doesn't sound like Ule? How come this doesn't sound like Krista? What are you doing?
This sounds like Ganglion.
I will jump in here and say that your analogy may not be perfect, because while Cave-In's Jupiter threw me for a loop, I now look back on it and be like, that was a masterpiece.
Right.
In the meanwhile, I look back on the Blueprint Dives, and while I think it's great and I love singing along with this record, Gloriana is a great tune. I would not look back on it and say, oh, this is a masterpiece. I don't care how many Norwegian Grammys it got nominated for. It's
It won one.
Did it?
Yep.
Wow.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you guys like money?
I love money.
I like money.
Hey, Dan, can you give me some money?
Yeah, it's coming in the mail, dude.
As a capitalist, yes, I like money.
Money. Why, like, as musicians, why wouldn't you do this record?
Oh, I get it. To me, this seems like the album that they did. I don't want to say that they did it to make money, but it was such a departure because band members changing. I think that was it was naturally going to sound very different. But this one, to me, has the most mass appeal. I don't necessarily know that they did it. I wouldn't say that they did it for money, but I don't know. That's not what I would say about this record at all.
I mean, money had to have been a factor at least a little bit in that, I think so. And again, it's not because this sounds like top 40 radio, especially not in America, so it's not that. And there's a lot of like artsy shit on this record. Like that's for certain. It's not just a straight ahead like pop metal album. Like if they wanted to do that, it would have sounded like a Guns N' Roses album or something like that, like it wouldn't have sounded like this if the only motivation had been money.
Well, you have a different Ule in the band now. And Tor is back, but he's not playing bass, he's playing guitar, and no one is credited with the sung vocals.
Well, that's Peter. Which, I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Dude's never sung clean ever on an Extol record, and here he is, front and center, like singing his heart out. That was different.
I didn't believe for a little while that it was Peter. Yeah. I thought that they had gone and gotten a new vocalist. If you look at it from the outside, and say, well, they just brought in all the guys from Linkcell.
Yeah.
You would think they're going to bring forward a record that leans more towards the black metal that they started with. Like that first Linkcell record is so good, just so much tremolo picking and, all the things that are like, it was still the Solace record by Linkcell. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. But it was so progressive and black metal at the same time, and it just seemed like we were in such a special kind of window of people just really pushing boundaries in every type of music. I thought we're going to get something crazy,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
What we got was something very different, and I really do like this album. It would have been better. It would have been better if they had changed the name of the band. Quite honestly, just like in my mind, they still should have changed Zayo's name when Dan and Brett and Russ came in. That was not the same band.
Hot take.
It's not. That's a really old take.
Yeah.
I remember going through that phase with Zayo as well, because it was because everybody quit except for Jesse.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say quit. I went left. They left the band, so it seemed like a different band than the ones that to me, like 19. There's the eras of Zayo. There's the 1995 era, which had Eric on vocals, right? And then you had 96 to 98. And that was the Jonas era, if you will, and the Roy and the Mick era. And then there's, the Dan and Brett. I mean, I'm going to call it the Dan era. Then the Dan era was from 99 to now. And sometimes, like when that happens, like a different band. I mean, now in the scope of Zayo, it's there is really only one Zayo in my opinion now, because that's the most long-standing one, so to speak.
Right.
The Dan era of Zayo is by far the longest era, but with Extol, this was just such a departure. This really did seem like a full-on different band.
Real quick, Danny, check your mic. You sound real far away. Either your input changed or something flipped around.
It might have defaulted to your computer mic. Yeah.
The cable went around my back.
That's all right. That's better. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
cool.
Thanks for saying so. So the longest era of Zayo is the Dan era, but this album was such a departure from what they had set up, from the style that they had set up, and it took me a while. Like I like the album now, but this one was the toughest pill to swallow, no doubt.
Barring the example of Zayo, where the drummer believed he was the band, no lead singer is going to change the name of the band just because the style of music cosmetically changes.
Right.
So as much as we think from the fan perspective, if you called it something different, I might not treat it the same way. In the end, it's Extol. You're a fan of the band. This is the music we decided to make this week. So hopefully you're into it, guys. I have a hard time not feeling like I've been deceived. Like, you knew this wasn't what you were going to put out. You knew it wasn't going to be Extol the same way that Extol has been for the past 5 to 10 years.
Right.
The worst example I have, but I think it's the most relevant, is when the guy from Blink-182 decided he was going to do Boxcar Racer. At no point did I say this is going to be another record that sounds like Blink-182. It's just going to be missing one of the members. I actually believed it was going to be something different. So now with Extol, I'm hearing a melodic, more Hopes Fall type band. I like it, but if I was a super fan who was way into Burial and way into Synergy, I might be a little upset. Ladies and gentlemen, unpleasable metal fan.
Okay, so let's talk about how I felt about this record in 2004.
How did you feel about this record in 2004, Dan?
2005, sorry. That's when it came out. It was recorded in 2004. Anyway.
He was excited for it in 2004.
I felt about it in 2004.
You guys don't have any of your computers on, like, speakerphone or anything, do you?
No.
Okay.
No.
3, 2, 1, go.
So in 2005, I was like, fuck this band. Like, what are they doing to me? What are they doing to me personally? Like, they must have been standing there in the studio being like, you know what really pissed Dan off? If we did this. Because we know how much Dan loves Undeceived. We know how much he loves Burial. And he thinks Synergy's growing on him. You know? What are we going to do that's really going to upset him? So you put out the Blueprint dives. When I heard Gloriana, I called one of my buddies. This is just how big of an asshole I used to be. I called one of my buddies and I was like, yeah, I just listened to the new Extol song on MySpace and it made me physically sick. Like I was like, guys, you can't do this. This is horrible. This is garbage. It's nothing like the band that you would expect. To go back to the Langcell thing, I loved Langcell's first album. Oh my god, like, it's one of the best black metal records I've ever heard. Like, it's incredible on multiple levels. So whenever I find out that the dudes from Lingcell are kind of taking over Extol, I'm like, you know what? This is probably fine.
This might be okay.
Yeah, like this might be okay. Like I'm not, I can't think of better guys, that they could have picked. And that was also before I heard the second Lingcell album. So oh my God, that's a whole nother podcast. The second Lingcell album, but
yeah,
but like. I wasn't expecting this, and I wasn't in the mindset for it, and I wasn't receptive to what they were throwing down, like, at all, because it really is asking a metal fan to step out of their comfort zone and check out something that's not metal with a band that you respect. Like, we're going to take, and again, I think the Cave-In comparison is completely on point, except for the fact that Cave-In continued, like, yeah, Jupiter, masterpiece, Antenna. Okay, I actually really like Antenna, but like it's not. But the mindset is very similar. I went through the same sort of internal conflict with Cave-In as I did with Extol. Like I was like, I've basically got to sit down and say, okay, the other records don't exist. What is this? What merit does this have on its own that I can get into, that I can pull out of it?
Does it appeal at all to your Hopes Fall?
A little bit, but not really. Because you got to think in 2000, well, I don't know, 2005, Hopeful was doing like A-types or something like that, but like they were kind of going through a similar transition, but I don't think they sound the same at all. But I did like the atmospheric nature of it, and these guys are still master songwriters. So they're just not writing the kind of songs that I'm used to hearing them playing. So like in 2019, when I listened to, whenever I listened to Blueprint for this podcast, I was like, this is really cool. Like I like the way it sounds. I like how they were accessible but still weird, and I like the vocals. They're not amazing because like here's the thing, man. Ola's vocals on the old stuff was so good.
Yeah.
And Peter is a good singer, but he's not even close to the same level as Ola was, and he doesn't try to be that, and that's fine. But it is kind of disjointed where you're like, I've got a guy that makes Bruce Dickinson sound like a bitch. But now I've got this other guy. So like a lot of people, a lot of hardcore. Yeah, I'm accusing you guys of having hot takes.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's a
But I believe it, dude. If Ola started singing for Iron Maiden, like they'd be my favorite band. Like, like overnight. But Peter's voice had more of an emotional delivery to it. They're not emo vocals by any stretch, but he's a good singer. He delivers in a way that I can get behind on a more personal level, and they just did a really good job. I don't think that I could have handled what if they would have done something else in a lesser heavy vein again after this. I don't hate Blueprint. I actually really like it, but compared to the other Extol records, it's a hard pill to swallow.
In retrospect, yes, it's really like I like it now, but when it came out, I'm with you. I was like, I had so much disdain for this record when it came out that it was, I was like, throwing in the towel on the band. I'm like, okay, well, I guess this band is done. But yeah.
I actually went out and bought it a second time. I found it at the local used CD store maybe a few years ago and gave it another shot. And I'm like, this is fantastic. Yes, I agree. Vocally, that's definitely my sticking point on almost every album. And I think that he did a fine job of singing. It just nobody was buying
this record for this.
Did anyone buy this record is the question.
Everybody wanted the new record by Extol.
Yeah.
How many of them still own it? That's the real question.
So did you guys watch the DVD of Light and Shade?
Yes. I have a funny story about the DVD.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. You guys first, and then I'll tell the story.
I just wanted to mention this really quick. They're talking about their tour, their U.S. tour for this album, and they're up there playing these songs, and like the fans are just standing there like, what the hell is going on right now? Like I don't know what they're going for. And he's like, and it's funny because I think it was Peter. He even said like, Peter was all like, yeah, dude, because they're expecting Extol. They just thought we were going to get up there and fucking circle bang our heads for an hour, and that's not what we did. And they were all very upset. I was one of those.
I read some reviews on YouTube recently, and somebody was like, I saw these guys in like 2005 and they only played for like half an hour and they got off the stage. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have blamed anybody. Nobody probably even moved. They just all stood there, probably drooled on themselves a little bit, and then Extol got off the stage, I can't imagine seeing them at this point because of what high regard I held them at, and I think that in 2005 I was very disappointed with this album, but
agreed.
I crashed.
What was the story, Danny? I want to hear it.
Was it Danny or Josh said the story?
Danny's got the story.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is for Extol's self-titled, right?
We can move on to that if
Yeah,
you're
we're
ready.
there. We're there.
About the DVD.
The DVD of Light and Shade or whatever.
Of Light and Shade.
Yes.
I'm an executive producer of that.
What?
Yeah, if you go look through the credits, I'm one of the executive producers of Light and Shade.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, we'll dig into that a little bit later off mic.
Crowdfunding is great, right?
Crowdfunding. Yeah, because that was one of the things where when I found out that Ule was going to be back in the band, quite honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a once in a lifetime opportunity to then be an executive producer. And all really an executive producer is somebody who fronts the money.
Right.
And I forked over $500 to be an executive producer and get all of the bonus things about this DVD.
That's really cool.
CD release. Yeah.
That's really cool. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves though. After Blueprint, Extol was just like not there anymore. Like they were just
they go on hiatus.
Completely gone.
They were actually gone.
They really were.
Yeah. Nobody knew what was going on with them.
And I listened to a podcast where they interviewed Peter, and they're like, where have you been all this time? And he was all like, yeah, I had some weird psychological issues where I couldn't even leave my house for years. Like, he was afraid of, like, public places. And I'm not, like, talking trash on him or airing his dirty laundry. Like, he said it on a podcast. Like, so, I mean, he threw it out there for everybody. But he was like, yeah, he's like, I had to have, like, multiple therapy sessions. He's like, I was afraid of public places and, like, getting on elevators and, like...
What was it, agoraphobia?
It was just a unfortunate mental thing that just hit him all at once. Like, I mean, you can't tour doing that. You can't play shows. You can't go anywhere. And, like, he still, I think, struggles with that to a certain extent, which is why it was so surprising that they were back all of a sudden in 2013. And they're like, we're putting out a new record. And I remember hearing the clips from that record and being like, oh, my God.
They're back.
Oh, my God, they're back. This is all going to be okay. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I think he had some hearing issues, too. I think that he had, like, a really severe case of tinnitus. Like the ringing in your ears that can have balance. You can have balance issues.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I thought I heard that too, but they went on hiatus and came back and kind of I don't know. Their self-titled I think is just it's stupid. It's so good.
It's a masterpiece.
It's my favorite record by the band.
Masterpiece.
It's the perfect blend of the death metal, the melodic guitar playing, and the major thrash influence.
I completely agree. I feel like I don't know that I've ranked any of these albums. I could probably do it if you put me on the spot real fast. But apart from one track on this self-titled release, I feel like it is fantastic. And specifically, was it tracks 10 and 11? It was the tracks Extol, which was kind of funny because it's Extol on the album Extol by the band Extol.
Yeah, gotta have that.
So it would have been Ministers and Extol. Those two albums right there together. I thought that was a great like 1-2 punch at the back end of an album that I don't necessarily see in a lot of a lot of albums anymore, you know, where you're like nearing the end and you're like, yes, this is so good. You know, it's been a while since I have felt like that. There was a moment on Gorgut's Colored Sands record, which actually came out the same year that the self-titled record came out in 2013, where they had written like a song that basically sounded like a movie soundtrack. You know, it sounded like a movie score. And then it went right into the next track, and it's right in the middle of that album, and it's like tracks 5 and 6 maybe, and it just felt so weird that, you know, the score track sounded like it was, you know, it was super intense, and it went into my favorite song on that album. But I think that Extol is probably my favorite song on the Extol self-titled. And Ministers was a really high point right there as well. So I've just really come to love that album because it's so strong in multiple places. And I mean, like, I don't know that it is as even across the board as Synergy is, but it has very high points. It's got some low points as well that are like, I don't love the record, like I don't love this specific track, but the high points are fantastic, you know?
So are you saying that you're really a fan of Extol?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love Extol so much. I love the band. I love the record. I love the song. You name it, Extol. I'm your guy.
Yeah. Extol is my favorite.
by the band
Whoa,
Extol.
I just got that. You've been saying that for years.
Yeah. Well, do you guys think that they sat down and wrote this album after they got together and sat down as a band and wrote all these songs? Or do you think that this was like all of the ideas that they'd had in the interim, you know, between Blueprint or even whenever like Ola left the band, you know?
So do you remember when I said there was a new Ole on the previous record?
Yeah. Well,
The original Ole
yeah, the original
plays all of the guitars
he
and
plays
bass
everything
on
yeah.
the self-titled. So this is all him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that it is. I think that they probably got together and said, we've got some sort of unfinished business after Synergy. And I don't really think that Ola was really looking at like, we have to make up for Blueprint dives. You gotta totally let me make up for that Blueprints dives thing.
You finally came crawling back.
It is obviously, you know, like very much Ola's songwriting here. I don't know that it had been anything sitting around. I bet he was kicking it around in the back of his head, but he wrote a bunch of like these pop records, super funky pop records. They're so fun, you know, but which is a testament to the depth of his talent, you know, where he can make something that's actually pretty appealing that has nothing to do with metal. You know, I'd be lying to say I listen to a lot of anything else, but it's appealing. It's fun. You know, I find that the things that I do listen to outside of metal are usually like funk or or just something, you know, something fun, you know?
Bravo.
So anyway.
Well, in the spirit of wrapping up, what would your guys' final thoughts on Extol be, like overall?
Ooh, there's nobody like them. There's a few bands that stand out to me as being like the innovators of our genres. You know, to me, Living Sacrifice was one of those bands. You know, Strong Arm, you know, definitely, I mean, Advent of a Miracle, right? But when I think about a band's scope of work and how they still like, or the Dillinger Escape Plan, Meshuggah, like bands that really stand apart, I think that Extol is one of those bands that just stands apart. I mean, the self-titled album is brilliant. It's, I think, their best produced album, but just as a whole, there's nobody really has able to do what they've been able to do, and I think that's what makes them a great band. That's what makes them a great effort.
Josh, what about you?
I would say that they have left, let's go with indelible, an indelible mark on the face of metal, not only within the Christian music scene, but I think that they are a well-regarded band across all boards.
Yeah.
They pushed boundaries that I don't know of a lot of bands that have pushed the same boundaries that they have, especially while being as technically proficient as Extol was. There were a lot of ideas, counterpoint guitars that, you heard a lot in Death and Cynic, and, a lot of my favorite bands use that whole counterpoint approach to guitar parts. And it's just, they changed my perspective on what can be progressive, can be that can be death metal, and I think that's what makes the great bands great, is that they make you change your ideas about what you had originally set in stone, and it just kind of like demolishes all of that and says, no, you're wrong, it can be something completely different. And so the bands that like stick with me are always these bands that have challenged those things inside me to say, oh, I was completely wrong. Death metal doesn't have to be this. It can be everything else as well, and so I love the history that, like, from the very beginning, Extol changed and expanded my viewpoints, in that, like, I heard them and immediately had never heard anything quite like them and wanted to know more. So, and that's kind of where it took me their entire career. It was always something very different from the last thing.
Dude, you guys stepped up your Final Thought game from last time. I don't know if I can top that. Not that that's the goal, but I think that Extol is one of the most important bands from this scene, that being kind of the Christian death metal scene, which might sound like an oxymoron to some people even today, which is just crazy to me, with how much that scene has grown, from the mid-90s to now. Like, it's just insane, the amount of bands that have come out, but there's never been a band that has stood out like Extol has, and really kind of shined a light in the darkness in a way where people that are traditional metal fans, you be it Christian or non, you can't deny the talent there, the creativity there, and this is across multiple members. I think it's easy to throw it all on one guy and be like, he's the reason why the band was good, and I don't think that's 100% fair. I think even without those founding members, the band was still able to craft things that were interesting and cool and stuff that people could get behind, even if they didn't necessarily feel that way about it in that moment. It was always a grower, and Extol has always been a grower. And even to this day, like, I was driving with my wife, again, to a family event over the weekend, and we were listening to Extol against their will. And and I was like, oh my God, well, how come I haven't listened to this band in like 5 years? Like, they do all the things. They do all the things that I love about metal. Why am I not listening to them constantly? And not very many bands, especially with the nature of what we do on this show, stick with me like that.
That's fair. It's very fair.
What do you got, Joe?
Extol is a band I should listen to more. I was not a scene kid, but I listened to those bands. I was a classic thrash, 80s Slayer, Megadeth. Later on, all of your hard rock bands and grunge and whatever the scene was at the time. I appreciate that, but my core is in classic thrash metal. Extol was a band, whenever I'd look at the record, my reaction was, it's there. It'll be there when I want to listen to it. I was never compelled to listen to it, but when I found it, I was so happy that there were other bands that did the style of songwriting that I'm a fan of when I'm a guitar player. And every time I listen to Extol, maybe because I haven't listened to them enough, I'm surprised by something. I find a comparison that I kick myself for. Last week, I was listening to Opeth, and I really wanted it to sound like this, but it just didn't. Oh, wait, Extol did that back in 2003? Well, this is my fault. I should have been listening to this. So for anyone that listens to death metal, progressive metal, and wants to be fucking surprised when the band decides to do melodic rock in the middle of their career, you should listen to Extol.
Danny, what's your album of the week?
Let me change the question. Does anybody want to tell me that their album of the week is not Circle Back Terminus?
I'm not going to tell you that that's not my album of the week. John Marino does it again.
John Marino does it again. What a class act, man. Like, oh my goodness. I talked to that dude for for 2 hours a couple weeks ago for my other podcast, and it was just... What's funny, we actually had to cut 45 minutes of that conversation out because it was just me and John talking about Zayo.
So this is what I need. Danny, Circle Back, Terminus, go.
This is the end.
Josh, Circle Back, Terminus, go.
Wait a minute. Am I supposed to be doing vocal renditions of the album?
You can do that, or you can just say Circle Back, Terminus.
Circle Back, Terminus. Came out on my birthday. Go listen to it.
Hey, the Not Beneath album came out on my birthday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's see here.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. All right, do I get to do a vocal rendition, please?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, man. This is going to suck so bad. My screaming vocals have gotten so bad over the years.
Do it.
All right. We're on the hunt for you. Your worst nightmare is coming true. Your closed mind will fail, and in the end, we will prevail.
Well done.
Not really. Oh, man.
You even did it without getting the tickle in your throat and make you...
It's still in there. He just needs to work on it.
Yeah, I do. I need to really practice up. But because I've been talking to John about trying to get them to come to our town. So if I can arrange that, I need to I need to get my jump on the stage uninvited guest vocal thing going on really quickly.
Nice.
So
There are very few frontmen as good as John. We are very privileged to have been able to work with him and do as much as we have between all of our projects and Circle Back included. He's something else.
he's definitely a very charismatic dude. I did not want to get off the phone with him, and I was like, all right, we got to go. It's 10 o'clock, so kind of like tonight. So thank you guys so much.
Josh, Danny, what's going on with Not Beneath?
Not Beneath. We are a bunch of full-time working dads with kids. We are trying our best to get ready to play some shows. We've got a band. We are currently a 4-piece. We are just trying to get everybody up to speed. We had some people take some time off due to birth of children, which is totally all right. We just want to be dudes that get together and have fun and play music with our friends, because we're not out here trying to make a ton of money. We're insanely privileged to think that anybody has appreciated what we've created. I think that is the biggest payment for any creative, is that somebody actually takes what you created and said, I appreciate this, or it means something to me. So the fact that we have people in our lives that are saying that to us makes us feel incredible, And so the only other thing that we really want to do at this point is just get out and play some live shows. We've definitely got a a little bit of work to do still, but I think that we're going to come out and kill it very soon for all those who are hoping to catch us live. So, we'd love to get around to writing some new material. We are all very, very busy. We've written some other goofy stuff that hasn't quite made the one thing about me and Danny is our creative output seems to always be very high. So we have released a lot of silliness. We have a number of joke bands. Our band Down by Contact, which is mostly just songs about the Browns.
Typical.
Yeah, we even did a song that was like, it was originally going to be like a circle back, like we were going to do a circle back song about the Browns. And that's how, when you look at the video, that's like circle back was a part of that.
Yeah.
But it really ended up becoming Down by Contact. So we have that. We have You're in Trouble Now.
No.
Which was originally going to be called Urethra Franklin, but that name was already taken. So we wrote a song called that. We also have a band called Bill Burzum. So that might be our crowning achievement. It's really, really amazing. But yeah, Josh and I kind of the quick thing is that we are going to have a sophomore album. We said that we always wanted to write a sophomore album. It's going to happen just when we don't know.
I have a suggestion and a request.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not Beneath, featuring Discuss Metal Dan, Return of the Mac.
By Mark Morrison.
Think about it.
Okay.
Now make it happen.
Now I really have to practice my vocals.
Maybe we could put that under a different band name, under a different moniker, if you will. Maybe our side band, Capital Punishment.
We have Capital Punishment.
Hold on. It's coming to me. Markifa Mortification. No, I don't know. I can't do it. Never mind.
Well, another one that we're working on is David Lee Gorgoroth.
Oh my God! Amazing.
We also wanted to do one called Mayhem.
Yeah, Mayhem.
Mayhem. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
This was a pig, and now it is ham.
Eventually, there's going to be a best of all of our joke bands.
That's amazing.
And it'll just be a compilation.
Press it to vinyl.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It'll be amazing.
It'll all be 30 tracks, all like less than a minute and a half long.
Yeah.
It's good.
Right.
Have you ever been listening to this podcast and thought to yourself, why do they keep talking about these bands that I don't care about? Talk about bands that I care about. Here's the thing, man. I'm not a freaking mind reader. I don't know what your favorite band is. You got to tell me. Luckily, due to modern technology, there's tons of ways you can tell me. You can send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter at discussmetal. You can reach out to me and Joe personally if that's your bag at discussmetaldan or discussmetaljoe on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook under facebook.com/discography discussion. We have an official group there that you can join. Just ask to join the group and you will be led into the wonderfulness that is that group. Speaking of awesome groups, we have a Discord server set only for people to listen to Discography Discussion. You can click on the link in the show notes and you will be taken to our Discord server where people are talking to us all the time. We're all in there. It's officially us. It's not a weird thing. Check it out. Join in the conversations there. Let us know what your favorite band is. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know what you think about the show. One of the things that you can do that really helps us out as a podcast is to contribute to our Patreon. Our Patreon has been the lifeblood of our podcast since we started. The people that have contributed have done amazing, and I want to shout some of them out right now. We have Alexander, Brian Dean, David Brown, Jeffrey De Los Santos,
The Actual Mac,
Kiki Kuti, Do You Love Me?
I Do Love You,
Lance Allagood,
The King of Metal,
Native Keebs, Patrick Asplund, Samuel Woodward, and Zach Barr. You guys are the music makers. You are the dreamers of the dreams. Thank you so much.
And on that note, this has been episode 141 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.